Hey everybody. Well, I had a really interesting thing happen when I was uploading my last video. And what happened was I said I was going to upload some pictures and then I forgot to release the video. Then I put a comment in there saying, "Hey, I forgot to put the pictures up." But when I forgot to put the pictures up, it gave me an idea of something that I thought, "Well, this could be fun." So what I did was I said, "Hey, maybe what I'll do is I'll show you those pictures that I took at the Louvre, um, but maybe talk about the artwork in the Bond movies." So this is actually going to be a part one of looking at some of the artwork of the Bond movies because there's a lot of art hanging on the walls in the Bond movies. I started to notice it especially like in the layers of the villains, and they would have these huge art pieces and trying to add grandeur to different locations and things like that. Well, so I fixed my original video and I put those pictures on there, but the idea still stuck with me that I wanted to take a look. So let's take a look. We're going to look through a number of them, and this will be part one because there's so much art used in the Bond movies. It's going to be really hard to. I don't think I could even fit it all into in 1 hour. So let's take a look at this first picture because this really is the first picture in all the Bond movies. It's from Doctor No. And it is from the Cercle in the casino, um, where we first meet James Bond. And so it's nothing of major interest. It's a horse. But here's the vibe that it kind of gave me. The vibe of it is kind of like almost like a kind of an elegant man's den. The wood, the gold. You have like all these warm, elegant type colors, but it looks kind of like a den. This casino does, and the reason why I kind of get that vibe from it was somebody else once told me I set up my office one time, and I was just using the pictures that were available where I was. There were some old display pictures, and they were of horses. And so I used like a light green. They painted the office a light green, and then I hung these horse pictures, and then with my desk and everything, people would come in and say, "Wow, this looks like a den, like you would see at somebody's house." Um, and it does, especially, I don't know why, but having pictures of horses does definitely make it look like a den. So that was the vibe I got from the first picture, just kind of like a man's den as an introduction you know, to Bond in the casino. Now we look at our second picture here. This is Bond talking to M. Now, when I started looking at the pictures in the background, I realized that, hey, M likes ships because he has these pictures in his office of ships and a lot of pictures of ships. So the three on the right there, he's going to carry those through a number of the movies. Those pictures stay the same in his office of the ships. And then same in Doctor No, they're still talking. And then you look behind his desk, and I mean, come on, there's a big painting of a nice big ship. There's other smaller pieces of art with a ship, and so M definitely loves ships. So that's something that I learned about M just by concentrating on the artwork in his office. And then again, if we look at this next picture, just a clear picture of a painting of the ship over the mantle of the fireplace. It's and you'll see that this is going to change. this picture will change uh, in From Russia with Love, and in further movies, but it'll still be a ship, so you'll see. Then we follow Bond back to his hotel, and before he's going to go off on the mission to get Dr. No. But you come back there, and there's these pictures of old cars on the back. And again, it kind of gave like this manly den kind of vibe to it, even though this is supposed to be a hotel, but it kind of gave like, okay, this is like kind of a manly thing. There's some cars in the back again, and he even has like the light green wall on there with the white trim. It does. It kind of gives it like this a man's den kind of feel. Now let's look at the next picture. This is when um, Bond is following up on Strangways and what happened with Strangways, and he's going to one of the bad guys' one of the bad guys' places of business, and there's like this modern art hanging up there, very interesting. Um, Something you wouldn't expect to see somewhere, maybe in a place of business. Um, but I started to see in a number of these movies that when you get to the bad guys and to some of the layers, and that a lot of interesting places for the bad guys, they use modern art, and you'll see as we go, versus like Victorian art that is usually through a lot of the Bond movies. So this was an interesting piece. And then this one right here of Dr. No, I thought that this was a nice contrast because whenever you were in a space where it was meant to be occupied, it was supposed to be a, whenever you went someplace where it was meant to be occupied, where people would spend time, there was usually some artwork up on the walls. But here, of course, this is somewhere you don't want to be. It's stark. Um, you don't want to have to be there. And in fact, even Dr. No didn't want anybody to be there. So there's nothing warm or welcoming about this room because there's no artwork, of course. And then, as they were in the lair of Dr. No, um, I noticed on the back wall there was this other piece of art there, very gray, almost stone looking itself. Very hard to make out what it is. There is the figure, I believe, of a woman. She has on some kind of a dress, but you can't really tell. You can't, it's just very stone looking itself. And all the hard um, backgrounds in this setting to me was a reflection of Dr. No, and probably like his hands, that made of metal, and that, so everything was going to be pretty hard when it came to like looking at his lair. Now I thought that until we actually we get to the part of the movie where they're having dinner with Dr. No, and you'll see that there's quite a mix of artwork on that, but this it was cold art for kind of a cold room in this setting. So here we go in the next picture. This is where they're going to have dinner with Dr. No. This is his room. It looks like it's like his study and his dining area. And you can see some of the artwork, and it's very mixed. There's artwork as well as artifacts and things like that. Very mixed. There's some Victorian. Um, there's other types of artwork in there as well. Because as we know, Dr. No, he kind of came from a number of different places. He had a lot of different cultures in his background. So here we can see in this next picture as Bond was looking. Oh, is this a way out? Uh, and he's checking the door, but we can see there's a mix of different types of artwork just hanging on that one wall, um, kind of like some uh, Japanese artwork there to the right. It kind of looks like, and then off to the left, there's kind of a Victorian art to it, and then the furniture um, is of itself even kind of different. Just shows that mixed culture, the different backgrounds, and then I thought it was interesting. A very stark contrast you can see here as Dr. No comes out from behind that door. So there's like that Japanese art there on the one side, on the right side there. But then look in the back, look behind him. I mean, that is clearly some Victorian art in the back. So a really interesting contrast of that. And then, of course, Bond himself here. Um, he notices. See, we can see more like Japanese art up on the wall. But Bond notices. He's like, oh, look at this. Who's this? A member of royalty, of course, at the time. So um, he was probably, as a character, Bond was probably thinking, just like, what? This just really kind of doesn't fit in here. It's really kind of out of nowhere. Just such a hodgepodge of taste and art. Okay, now we're going to move on to From Russia with Love. And as we look here, it's the chess match From Russia with Love, and big grandeur to the art, colorful, very Victorian, um, and the chandelier. And we'll notice in a lot of the Bond movies when it's big, it's and meant to we're supposed to be in this huge space of class and culture and things like that. Usually the Victorian art is used for those and big pieces of art. Now here on the boat, this was on a boat, and I looked at this piece of art. I could see in the back, and again, a very odd, peculiar piece of modern art at the time. And so this is when I started to say, hey, it's really interesting that when you're in not necessarily the main layer of of um of the bad guys, the villains and that, but when you're kind of on a boat, and we'll see later on a plane, um or just other location than the main layer, they use this like really funky modern art. Now I looked at this, and it reminded me of kind of like an Egyptian god with a bull's head. So Montu was a god of war, for the Egyptians, and that's kind of what it reminded me of. I think that would be pretty fitting, as well, that they would have a piece of art for the god of war. So here we have Spectre, Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, and Extortion. And they're using Montu, God of War, perhaps, in the background. Anyway, I thought that might be just a little interesting piece. Then we go back. Now, as Bond comes back into the office here, and we see that he is um, talking going to talk to Moneypenny and M. There was a piece of art in the back of the hallway there, and it made me think, oh, this is that the same one as, are we getting repeat art? And I thought it might have been the same one at a certain angle as the first piece of art, the horse, but it's not. I went back and double checked. It's not. But then here we go. Next movie, From Russia with Love. We come back into M's office, and look, you see him? those three, you could see it on the left here, but there's those three ships in the back again. But on the right side, there's some other pieces of art, and we'll see them a little bit better. They are not ships. It's hard to make out what they are, but it kind of, I don't know. It was they almost look like kind of like American style pictures. It was hard to tell, but you'll get a better look. But we have the ships still in the office, and then here they are. If we could look at this next picture here, as Q is coming in, and he's gonna start telling Bond about the attaché case. There's these pictures up on the wall, a set of 4, and one of them kind of actually looked like a couple of guards at a gate or on the street, and so they kind of looked like, I don't know, more of a modern kind of a picture, but it was really hard to tell. I zoomed in and I couldn't really tell, but they're definitely matching the same style, just a different scene. Now I got a close up here, and the picture on the mantle has changed in From Russia with Love. So the mantle picture changed, but there's still, you can kind of see over the lampshade a little bit of a ship, but we get a closer look. But I noticed too the lampshades changed as well. They're not the green glass like on his desk. And then Bond, when he's going to the hotel From Russia with Love, and he's checking behind the artwork for the bugs. But notice they have the gold around the door. They have the big, heavy gold picture frames and the Victorian style art. So they're trying to add to the class of the hotel that he's at. Just like, hey, this is a really classy, expensive place to be. And here, of course, when we look at the next picture, here, Bond in a big, huge cathedral. And, of course, all the artwork that's going to be up on the ceilings. And that, of course, all the Bond movies capture those really well. They do a nice job of showing upwards so that you get a really good shot of the ceilings, and you could take in all the artwork in those scenes. That's just a beautiful, beautiful scene because it's just stunning to see all the history and the art of that location. So here we go. Same movie, From Russia with Love, back in M's office. The picture above the mantle has changed. It's different, but there's still a ship in it. It kind of looks like a colonial picture with a ship in the background, but there's still a ship there. So M is a ship guy. He definitely is into sailing and ships and things like that. I learned something about M in this little project. All right. So let's go to Goldfinger. Go to Goldfinger next. And when Bond goes, when he's going up to the room where Goldfinger's getting the information about the card during the card game, and I just thought I'd point this out. Cheap art up on the wall of this hotel. So, and this is in Florida, supposed to be or Miami. That's right, it's supposed to be in Miami. And he, of course, it's not going to be like this major, big, elegant English style place where he's staying. So it's kind of like just, clean, cheap art you would see in any hotel somewhere. So then again, in Goldfinger, we go back to M's office, and there it is again. Another picture of a ship. There's somebody else in the background there, kind of a Victorian-looking picture, but always ships in M's office, no matter what movie. That may change at some point, but Goldfinger above the mantle, that is the same picture. It's kind of a colonial setting. It's got the ship in the background. So they did not change that photo for Goldfinger. And so thought that was interesting that they at least kept that picture the same. Now, this was a discovery of Moneypenny and her office. When she has flowers, she has real flowers on the windowsill, but she has flowers on her wall. And so Moneypenny likes flowers. She appreciates flowers. And I was actually wondering, now maybe it's just kind of the old romantic in me, but I was wondering, does this symbolize as well how Moneypenny is, in this building of men and bureaucracy and things like that? Is Moneypenny, is she like the flower, uh, you know, of of the land that she's in? You know, so it's almost as it really did seem to me like she likes flowers, and it's always flowers around her and her desk. But I thought it was kind of a symbolism that Moneypenny herself is the flower, uh, that that these men get to see every day and deal with, because Moneypenny's great, of course. We all love Moneypenny. And then another setting, it's kind of like a men's club here, and then you got the Victorian picture in the back, just kind of giving it that vibe of this is kind of a ritzy place, kind of a men's cave and den type area. So another setting that called for that kind of art. And then we get on Goldfinger's plane. Now here's what I'm talking about. Look at that. A weird modern art hanging on in the plane of Goldfinger. And not only is there a piece of art hanging there, there's an art lamp, a painting lamp hanging over the top of it. And it seems kind of weird and out of place. But this is when I was just like, oh man, I think I'm onto something here. When you're on a plane or a boat or somewhere weird that's not the main lair, they always use some kind of weird modern art. So I thought that was, I don't know. I think I'm onto something, maybe not. And then you get to Goldfinger's lair, and it's all horses. Everything. He's got little horses around. All the paintings are horses. There's saddles. There's wagon wheels. There's everything is horses. Even his pants in this scene, they're kind of like a horse riding pant that he's wearing. So he really loves horses. Now we get into some artwork of Thunderball. Now take a look at this. You would not have expected anything else, but because this was a big old English estate that Bond came to here, and big draperies, big art. Of course, that's would definitely symbolize a large European estate of some sort. But then he's at the health and recovery center there, and look at that cheap piece of art. It's got the gold metal bronzish looking frame, the cheap plastic cover over the top of just some generic plain looking piece of art, not meant to stimulate anything. It's just gonna fill a space on the wall. That was, I'm just like, I was thinking, wow, that's perfect. That's just a perfect piece of art for this setting. And then when he comes back, and here we are with Moneypenny again in her corner. Flowers. Moneypenny is the flower of the building. Her corner is decorated with pictures of flowers as well. And then we get into a massive big room in Thunderball. This is a huge room, massive pieces of art. And one of the things that stood out to me in this setting is, now we've kind of already established that big gold frames and that for art that are kind of good hiding places, right? And in fact, a lot of Bond movies, there's a lot of things are hidden behind art. So then, so it's not just, this is meant to help portray the size, of course. It's like, wow, this is a huge room. But then, of course, as we look at the next picture, they hide the map behind that huge piece of art. They're so kind of always supporting that idea that with big pieces of art come great hiding places. Okay, now then here we are again later in Thunderball. Bond's in another hotel room. Some kind of very generic art, nothing flashy about it. But I thought this was interesting though, because on the left side of him there, that's like generic like hotel art that you would see, just kind of, filling space. But on the right, it's kind of this Victorian looking picture. I thought, well, maybe they did that to warm up the room a little bit because it's wood on wood. So maybe that it was just meant to warm up the room a little bit. Uh, I'm not sure, or just raise the class level of the place just ever so slightly. Maybe I'm not sure, but that was a little bit of a mix match on the artwork there. But here, this was interesting too. Now here's a Victorian looking picture, or maybe even like an Italian, and that looking kind of artwork, and that an old Italian, old French Victorian, kind of painting. But look at the cheap frame around it. So like a cheap frame from a hotel, and that, but with, you know, kind of a class. The picture is classier than the frame. So that was a little different because usually a picture like that in the Bond movies has had the big gold wooden, gold painted wooden frames. And this was interesting. So here we are. We're at the house in Thunderball, and it's kind of like a lair. The main lair was actually the yacht, but so this house is the lair of our villain, and in the back he has ships, just like M. So he, but that makes sense. He likes ships. His main lair is a yacht. This guy loves his yacht. So um, obviously he likes ships as well. So in his room here of his house, he's got pictures of ships. And then again, Thunderball. Here we have Moneypenny, and oh yes, so they're on the ship. I'm sorry, this is not Thunderball. This is You Only Live Twice, and this is when Bond. They bring him back from the dead. He was buried at sea. They go and they bring him back out of the water, and they bring him onto a ship. Um, uh, or was it a ship or a sub? But they bring him on board, and Moneypenny has her little office here, and again she has flowers. So Moneypenny, what symbolism? Moneypenny is a flower herself. Pretty pretty cool symbolism, I think. And then this next picture, Bond is coming into M's office. It's a little blurry because it's hard to capture the screenshot, but you can see that there's still a ship. So it's a different office, but there's still a ship in M's office. So he must have loved being on a ship, as for this assignment. And then, of course, You Only Live Twice. There's lots of Japanese art like this. There's all kinds of Japanese art that you see throughout the movie. Beautiful, stunning art, big landscapes, um, a lot of pottery, things of that nature. So really to give you that feel of where Bond is, the location that he's at. Now, this was on Tiger's train, and I was like, okay, so this isn't a villain's train or plane or something. This is Tiger's, but again, weird, um, modern art kind of vibe to it. So he's got this really odd looking piece hanging up on there. I didn't know if that was supposed to represent a piece of Japan uh, or something like that. Maybe that's what it is, because it kind of has a design like land, like it's, the land, how it's designed on, like you would see it on a map, and a topographical kind of look. So maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure, but it really stood out. I was like, wow, that's kind of a funky piece of art, right? And then and then in the layer of Blofeld, um, there is a mix match of art as well, but very Victorian. And you can see in this picture, uh, he brought it in, and it's on wheels. It's just art hanging on wheels, because you can't hang it up on the rock wall. So it's just there. But I think it's just meant to warm up the room, give it some kind of little touch of class, and other than just looking like a big hole of rock. But very Victorian art here to warm up the room and give it that higher touch of class to it. So that was that was part one of looking at the art in the Bond movies, and um, I'm expecting that as I go and I'm looking at further movies, and as they become more and more and more current, um, we're going to see definitely a change of art in the background, because this was very Victorian for this. And I remember a lot of the layers when the bag, like I believe in Moonraker, there's some huge pieces of Victorian art. Also in The Spy Who Loved Me, when he's on uh, the what did he call it, the Nautilus, um, that, his lair that comes in and out of the water. Um, he had big pieces of Victorian art in there as well. Always trying to add some class to their lair, and that by having big Victorian art. So it shows a use of art to portray where Bond's at, what's going on, what area is he in, and kind of just add to the feel of the scene. So I hope you enjoyed this, where we're looking at the art. So this was part one. I look forward to seeing. There might be like even multiple parts, not just two, but we may even go three or four, depending on how much artwork we find. But this has been interesting, and I appreciate your time with it. Hope you had fun, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. All right, bye.